Okay, we are in, what book? Where are we?
Joshua.
We're ready to get into Joshua. Did last week's lesson get uploaded? Jane, did you find it?
I never did look for it, but I need to.
Okay. All right, and Andrew took the, tablet and hopefully uploaded it or downloaded it. I never know what the difference between upload and download. So I don't guess I know the difference between come here and sickle, so I don't know. But- Do what?
You're putting something in, you're taking something out. You're watching it or you're putting it in.
Not the only thing I understand about a computer is cursor. Cursor.
Now, so if you transfer something, you're both uploading and downloading. Didn't go wrong. All right. Okay, Joshua, if you have, what are we in the process of doing in Joshua?
Going into the promised land.
Okay, and so you have a fundamental three-point outline here. And I don't know about you, but at the beginning of the book of Joshua in my Bible, I'll write that little three-point outline down. And you have it on your sheet. And Roman number 1 is the invasion and conquest, chapters 1 through 12. And Roman numeral 2 is the land divided, chapter 13 through 22. And then Roman numeral 3 is Joshua's farewell and death in chapters 23 and 24. So that's a three-point outline. And I'm pretty big on outlines. I don't think you can teach something unless you can outline. And there are a lot of different places you can get outlines. Some outlines are better than others, and so you just kind of have to find one that suits you and the way that you study. But those outlines help you in your reading and help you in your study. Here's let me give you a challenge. Unless somebody knows right now, how long did it take to conquer the promised land?
3 years, 3.5 years.
That's your challenge for next week.
What was that?
How long did it take to conquer the promised land?
Can we Google it now?
From the time they went, do you know it? You know it?
Well, you know, they wandered 40 years in the wilderness, is that?
No, that's not. I'm talking
This
about
is
from the
after
time they entered until it was said that they conquered it. All right, how long was that? So, and it might surprise you, because we kind of tend to think, maybe a few months. It's a little longer than that. So, and I will tell you up front, you're gonna have to do a little bit of digging to find out, because you don't have a verse that says it took this long. You have to go back and find some starting point, and then an ending point, and then do a little figuring in between. So that's your challenge for next week. All right. So we start out. Joshua is the book of conquest, and chapter 1 begins with God's message to Joshua. So Moses is gone from the scene now. Joshua has been publicly ordained. Moses laid his hands on him. And by the way, that's a little insight into a couple of verses in the New Testament about don't be hasty to lay hands on any man. Some people have said, well, that means don't fight. Well, that's not what he's talking about. All right? But laying on of hands was something that was common in the Old and New Testament, and it was basically commissioning somebody for a particular task. So anyway, now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, came to pass that the Lord spoke unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, or Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, and all this people unto the land which I give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread on, I will give to you, as I said to Moses. From the wilderness Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun. So the great sea toward the going down of the sun, first of all, what direction is that? West. Sun goes down in the west, right? So what's the great sea? Mediterranean, right? Shall be your coast. There shall not be any man able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I'll be with you. I will not fail you, nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous. Good courage. For unto this people you'll divide an inheritance, the land which I swear to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. You shall observe, that you may observe to do according to all that's written therein. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and you shall have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong. In case I forgot to tell you, he said. Let me tell you one more time. Be strong and of good courage, and not be afraid, neither be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So that's God's charge to him. Very similar to the charge that he gave to Moses. And it's similar to the charge that he will give us today. Be strong and courageous. Do what's right, regardless of the consequences. Don't go to the left, to the right. Whatever you do in word or deed, do what? Do all in the name of the Lord. The name of the Lord means what? By his authority. You do something in the name of somebody, it is by their authority. And so that's the insight into a New Testament verse also. So whatever we do everything in the name of the Lord, by the authority of the Lord. And we could have a little sermon right here. Everything that we do, we appeal to some authority. I mean, if you stop and think about it, everything we do, we appeal to some authority. And so there are things when you start talking about different doctrinal matters, why do you people believe that you should take the Lord's Supper? Why do you believe that you should do this? Why should you do this? We have an authority for it, right? We go back to the Bible, we have an example. Some people may or may not accept that example as being binding. I'll say that. Sometimes you have to make that discussion. But you have an authority for everything you do. And so that comes down to, for instance, instrumental music. What authority do we have to have instrumental music in our assembly? Do we have any New Testament authority for it? You know, when I first came here, I preached a series of lessons that I call What the Bible Says About, and we picked different topics. And one of those was what the Bible says about instrumental music. And I started off that sermon by saying, if I really held true to my title, what the Bible says about authority about the New Testament, about instrumental music, I said this would truly be the shortest sermon you ever heard in your life. Right? Because you have some authority from the Old Testament, when you come to the New Testament, there's no mention of it. Right? And so, by the best whenever I have a discussion with somebody about why don't you people have an instrument in your assembly, my fallback is, by what authority do you have one? And so we have authority for everything. So you don't have a New Testament passage that gives you authority to do that. So we know that the instrument was introduced into the assembly somewhere around the 300s by Pope somebody or another. I forgot his name now, but that was the first time that we have any record of an instrument being in. We do know that the early assemblies of the church did not have instruments. So the best that you can say about it, and if you'd asked me 25 years ago, do you think that this is a salvation issue, I would have said yes. If you ask me today, I say I don't know. I hope it's not. I hope it's not. we're gonna try to do what the Bible says and having a biblical authority for it, and I don't see any, so, that's one of the reasons. So we go back here and he says, don't stray to the left or to the right. Study the law, in their case, the law. Study the law day and night and learn about it and stick with it, right down the dead center of it. Don't go to the left, to the right. And when you do that, he said, then your way will be prosperous. I will bless you for doing that. So that's my little sermon for today. Anybody have any comments about that?
Thinking about instrumental music, I think it was Martin Luther that said it, he didn't see anything wrong with musical instruments in the church as long as it could be seen or heard.
Yeah. He has several quotations along those lines.
That expression, don't turn to left or right, we had a song that's, have it on the way, Lord, and one of the verses it says, hold over me, absolute sway. I didn't know what that meant, had to ask my mom.
Yeah.
It just means don't go too far to the left, don't go too
Yeah.
far to the right, stay right down the course is where he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, now we've got, and I have a little line right there, I have it marked in my Bible, God's message to Joshua. And that goes down to verse 9. Now, verse 10, Joshua's message to the people. We start there. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the host, command the people, saying, King James says, prepare victuals. How do you pronounce that word? Victual.
It's a good
It means
southern
food.
word. How do
Means
you
food.
Did you
Victuals.
not say that?
We always said victuals. That's not what. For within 3 days you'll pass over this Jordan to go to possess the land where the Lord your God gives you to possess it. So you're about to get on the move, so get some food prepared so that you can take it with you. You're going to have 3 days to get prepared. And where are they? As they look toward the promised land, what's the first obstacle they see? Jordan River, right? Jordan River. And by the way, we're going to find out that the Jordan River was at flood stage, which means it was high, right? So it would be more difficult to cross. Do you think that's by accident? If it'd been low water stage,
They probably found somewhere themselves.
yeah, our people would say, well, yeah, you could ford the river here, you could ford the river there.
That
whatever.
indicated springtime?
I don't know for sure, but that sounds reasonable, but I don't know that.
I guess you had figured when they crossed it, there's what, over 1 million people crossing?
A lot of folks, yeah. So he says, verse 12, this is a proposal now. He's told everybody to get ready, and when he does, there's gonna be a group of people that come to him and said, okay, let me give you a proposal here. And that's gonna be who? 2.5 tribes that want to stay over on the east bank, right? So he says, to the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh. So that's the 2.5 tribes. And why did they want to stay on that side?
Excellent pasture land.
Yeah, they said, hey, this is rich land for our flocks and families. We would be thrilled to death to be able to stay here. So,
So was this not
Joshua,
originally in the plan?
Pardon?
This was not part of the Canaan land originally in the plan?
well, can't tell you that I know the answer to that, but he's going to say all the way from the Euphrates to the Great Sea, so that would include that. But it would also, if you went all the way to the Euphrates, then that includes a whole lot of desert too. Which nobody who wants a desert. But it was a boundary, and it was an important boundary. You had the sea as a boundary on one side, which, that's going to be a protection. If you have a sea, you have a sea coast to protect. You have a border that you should be protecting, and I'll leave it right there. And then you have the desert on the other side, which is obviously, it's going to be hard to cross that desert to come in. So you got two sides where you have a lot of protection. then on the north and south, you have a little less, but you have Egypt on your south, so if you can be friends with Egypt, then you're safe on the south side. North side's a different deal. That's where everybody is going to come from. All the invading armies are going to come from the north. So, he says, verse 13, he reminds them, saying, remember the word which Moses, servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God has given you rest and has given you this land. Now, I want to stop and make a point right here. In Hebrews chapter 4, verse 8, and in that whole section right there, it will talk about rest. Now, this is not, I'm chasing a little bit of a rabbit here, all right? In Hebrews chapter 4, verse 8, it will say, if Joshua was actually able to give you rest, there would be no notice of another day of rest. And so the rest that Joshua gave the people, and the Bible will talk about it here, and we'll talk about it in other places once they conquer the promised land. They will have rest. But it's not, that rest, just like everything else in the Old Testament, is a type. It's a shadow of something. It's a shadow of the rest that God offers you. And that rest that God offers us is, we don't have to earn our salvation. We don't work to deserve salvation. Salvation, righteousness, is a gift from God. And when you truly receive that gift from God, you have a rest like you have never known before. A rest that what? Bible, New Testament has something to say about it. That surpasses, a peace that passes understanding, right? But if you have to work for some part of it, if you have to keep earning some part of your righteousness, you can never have rest. Because you never know if you've done enough, right? But if it's a gift, if God gives you righteousness as a gift, if that's really true, then you're going to know rest like you've never known before. You're going to have a security, you're going to have a peace that you've never known before. But this is when these people have been, warring with different nations they came into contact with, and they've had all of this unrest for all these years, their whole life, basically. These people that are going to enter into the land, then to be able to go and have a house and have a garden and not have enemies that are breathing down your neck all the time, not having to get up and travel constantly, and having the same food, the same clothes, everything for all this period of time, can you imagine how that must have felt? To just go in and you just enter into this set up perfectly for you. And you got your pockets full of money, by the way, because you started out with a lot of gold from Egypt, and then you had a couple of wars with Og and who was the other guy that you conquered their land. You got a lot of stuff from there. So your pockets are full of money. You're sitting under your fig tree that you didn't plant, and you got a vine, grapes that you didn't plant and tend to, and you got a house that you didn't build. And so they just walk in, and for the first time in their life, they're going to know something about rest. And so, he says, the Lord your God has given you rest and has given you this land. Your wives, your little ones, your cattle, remember who he's talking to, 2.5 tribes, shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of Jordan, but you shall pass over before your brothers, armed, all the mighty men of valor, and help them, until the Lord has given your brethren rest as he's given you. They also possess the land which the Lord your God gives them. Then you shall return unto the land of your possession and enjoy it, which Moses, the Lord's servant, gave you on this side of the Jordan toward the rising of the sun. And they answered Joshua, all that you command us we will do, whither you send us we will go. Sounds like somebody else said that today. Whither thou goest, I will go. According as we hearken unto Moses in all things, we'll listen to you. Only the Lord thy God be with you as he was with Moses. And whoever it is that doth rebel against your commandment, will not hearken unto your words, and all that you command, he shall be put to death. Whoa. They're pretty serious about this, aren't they? They want they want everybody to be secure in the knowledge that they're not gonna desert. They're gonna stay until the end. And then guess what they said to Joshua?
Everything.
Be strong and courageous. All right? And you think about Joshua has been Moses' protege all this time. He's been his servant. And to be thrust into that position over all these people has to be an extremely intimidating challenge, right? And to think about that they're going into nations that are stronger and mightier than they are, right? And they're going up against some fenced cities, walled cities. They're going up against people that have iron chariots. So the task in front of them is a daunting task. And so he needs to hear this. And you know, a leader that is not strong and courageous, he's not going to have people following very long.
You know,
So
but don't you wonder,
Pardon?
you know, don't you wonder though, he watched all the miracles of Moses and all the things that, and the good and the bad.
That's
and
right.
what was going on. I think he was probably scribing it all down. But I mean, after seeing some of that, don't you think, I'm wondering, what's he gonna do now?
Yeah.
I just can't wait to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and he told me, well,
I'd be scared if he's still.
and you start chapter 2. In chapter 2, verse 2 through 21, we're going to have the story of Rahab and the spies. All right? But there's a little, I like the way it starts out. Joshua the son of Nun sent out from Chittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, go and view the land, even Jericho, specifically Jericho. And they went and came to the harlot's house. Now, well, how is this different from sending the 12 spies? What's different about this? Besides there were 12 one time and 2 this time.
Send them secretly.
He sent them secretly. Why? I have this sneaking suspicion if they came back with the same kind of report those 12 did, they're gonna get their throats slit.
And the 40 years.
Yeah, they better come back with the positive.
They had a little different attitude, didn't they?
That's right, they better come back with a positive. He sent them secretly, and you said, you come back and you report to me. Don't you come back and say anything to the people, you come back and you report to me. And so he's starting this out a little bit differently, and not taking any chances that they go, by the way, Jericho is well fortified.
Well, another thing, he was after intelligence. You don't wanna tell everybody, hey, everybody, I'm sending a couple of guys up there to get some intelligence, cause that's gonna.
Yeah. Of course, that's basically what happened whenever they chose the 12 spies initially, you know, and so that didn't turn out too well. So he said, okay, we're not gonna make that same mistake again. And you can believe he picked 2 guys that he really trusted, right? They don't tell us who they are, but so they went over and they spied out the land. And why Jericho? If you look at where they are right here, the first city they encounter is gonna be Jericho. In fact, quite often in the Old Testament, Jericho will be referred to as Jericho across Jordan. So it's right there, close to the banks of the Jordan River. And, you know, I mean, what can I say about this? They went to a harlot's house. Why would they have done that?
They at least suspected.
You know, it probably would not have been that uncommon for visitors to come into the town and they hear that there's a prostitute place over here, and, you know, it's kind of like sailors that come to a port somewhere. It's kind of a reputation that is gained.
That's where some of the best intelligence is gathered, is that.
I don't know about that, I don't know. I'm kicking at that.
Talking and,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of loose talk in there. so.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to a barber shop.
Might have had a red light, out there.
Well, it had a red string before it was over, didn't it? That's probably where that red light came from.
Well, maybe it was just a hotel.
Well, there is some, innkeeper. And I would like to believe that, okay?
Brothel.
But the Hebrew word Z-O-N-A-H means to commit fornication. So, and the Septuagint, remember what Septuagint is? The first Greek translation of the Hebrew text? It translates the word, it's the Greek word porne. We get the word what? Pornography or pornographic from it. So, as much as I would like for her to be an innkeeper rather than a prostitute, then it must have been
It
a
is what it is.
prostitute. It is what it is. Yeah.
God uses everybody.
So, her name was Rahab. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there come men into during the night from the children of Israel to search out the country. So he gets word there's a couple spies in the land. Now, don't you know, they know that that army's over there. They know why they're over there. They know that they're coming for them, right? And so they're going to have all of their ears that they can possibly have and eyes on those people. And so here come two strangers from that group, and word comes to the king, and the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that have come to you, which entered into your house, for they come to search out all the country. So he knew exactly where they were. And the woman took the two men and hid them and said, There came men unto me, but I didn't know where they came from. It came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, those men went out. Where they went, I don't know. And by the way, the King James Version says, I wot not. Do you know what wot means? No. W-O-T. That's the King James word for no. There's a phrase in the Old Testament, King James, I wish thee to what? Now, if you want to know why, particularly whenever I went overseas and was working with people through a translator, I didn't use the King James Version. Because to explain to a translator, it's hard enough to explain certain words to make sure the meaning is accurate. But when you start talking about, I wish thee to what?
Can you say what?
Yeah. That translates, I want you to know. I wish thee to what? I want you to know. So, the King James Version is a very accurate translation, all right? It just uses some old language, old King's language. So, and I'm not against it. That's what I'm reading from right here, all right? And one reason is because it makes me look up words. All right? And so she said, she lied, right? And she said, just before dark, I didn't know where they came from, but just before dark, they headed out before they closed the gate. And it came to pass, about the time of shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Where they went, I don't know, but if you'll go after them quickly, you'll overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan. So they went toward where they assumed that they would be going, unto the fords. And as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. So you're reading this story as it unfolds here. But now, meanwhile, back at Rahab's house, we get the curtain comes down, all right? Curtains comes down, here goes all these men, they're trying to capture these two guys, and you see them as they go all the way to the fords. And then the curtain comes down. When the curtain comes back up, you're back at Rahab's house. And before they were laid down, she came up to them on the roof, and she said to the men, and I underline the next phrase, I know, and she's going to give them this is gonna hark back to, all the way back when, during the Exodus and the preparation for the Exodus, all the plagues that took place. And every time the Lord brought a plague on Egypt, you remember what he said at the end of it? And then they will know that I am God. And it's not just Egypt that learned that lesson, but everybody in the known world got that lesson because they heard what happened to Egypt. They heard about these slave people whose God brought all of these plagues on the strongest nation that had ever existed and brought them down to their knees and then kept on kicking until they were completely broken. And then as the grand finale, what did he do at the very end?
He wiped out the army.
He did. He brought the waters back in, and Pharaoh and all of his mighty army were gone. And so Egypt was reduced to nothing. And word spread everywhere. And that was why God kept on with these plagues. He could have had them released the first time, but he kept on. He used Pharaoh's haughtiness and his stubbornness to prove to his advantage, to God's advantage, to prove to the world. He attacked, the plagues attacked every god that Egypt had and defeated every god that they had. And then he defeated Pharaoh's army. And so God's fame spread through all that. So whenever these people come, and you remember you had one of the kings who called in this soothsayer to try to get them cursed so that they couldn't come into the land. He knew what was going to happen. They knew what they were there for. They knew they were coming for that land.
They were all afraid.
They were terrified, and I don't blame them. I would be terrified too, wouldn't you? Because they had already defeated two major countries on the other side on their way, and they knew that. And so she goes up to the men, and she says, I know, number one, that the Lord has given you the land. Wow, that's a pretty big thing to know, right? I know the Lord has given you the land. Number two, that your terror has fallen upon us. We're all terrified that you're here. Number three, that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. Number four, for we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. They knew the details about it. And number five, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. So they know what's happened for the last 40 years.
They had the internet, didn't they?
Well, they had the grapevine.
Better than internet.
And it works pretty good. But, so, and as soon, verse 11, this is her speech to it. And as soon as we had heard these things, our heart melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, here's the next thing she knew. The Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in the earth beneath. So, the plagues and God's purpose for sending those plagues has proven to have worked, right? Because now the world knows the God of Israel, he's the God. He's the, they may not say the one God, but he's certainly the strongest God. Because he's defeated all of Egypt's gods, then nobody could stand up against Egypt. And so he took on the strong man, came into his house and tied him up, and destroyed him, and robbed his house. So, now therefore, she's saying, I pray you swear unto me by the Lord. That's kind of interesting. That since I've showed you kindness, you'll show kindness to my father's house and give me a true token. And that you will save alive my father, my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, and all they have, and deliver our lives making a deal with them, right? And by the way, they're not in a very good position to do any bargaining, are they? Because all she has to do is holler, hey, come here, and they're gone, right? So, these men, and the men answered her, our life for yours. If you utter not our business, and if it shall be that when the Lord has given us a land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you. So they agreed to her proposal, right? Now, beginning in verse 15, you're gonna get their escape. So they've got a deal. We're gonna find out a little bit more about it a little later. They're gonna have a contingency about, okay, we're gonna be responsible for you and your family if what?
You don't squeal.
If you stay in the house and you mark the house, all right, then we'll be responsible for your safety. She let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was on the town wall, and she dwelt on the wall. So her house was built, one of her walls of her house was the wall of the city. And she said to them, get to the mountains, lest the pursuers meet you. In other words, they'll be coming back. So you need to get out of Dodge here. And hide yourself for 3 days until the pursuers be returned, and afterward you may go your way. So she knows that these pursuers they're gonna search. They're gonna keep on searching, not gonna give up easily. The men said to her, we'll be blameless of your oath which you have made us to swear. Behold, when we come to the land, you shall bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which you did let us down by. And you shall bring your father, your mother, your brother, all your father's household into your house. And so there was when they came to Jericho and they marched around, then there was a window that had a scarlet thread or rope hung out of it. That may, since this was a harlot's house, that may have something to do with what people call the red light district today. I don't know.
But when the wall fell in her house was on the wall, did she escape? Or
Evidently it stood, it didn't fall. Or if it fell, then God miraculously saved them. So it shall be that whoever goes out the doors of your house into the street, his blood be upon his own head. There's a phrase right there that you're going to find lots of times in the Old Testament. His blood will be upon his own head. Now, what does that mean?
he's gonna be responsible for himself.
That's right. You will be responsible for your own death. That's what that means. And so he says, whosoever shall be with you in the house, his blood will be on our head. We'll be responsible for his life, if any hand be upon him. And by the way, that's pretty serious. When you got an army that's coming in, and sometimes that army gets out of control. But these two men were going to make sure that they positioned themselves in a place where they kept this family safe. And that's a pretty big challenge. Pretty big challenge. And if you utter this our business, then we will be free from the oath which you've made us swear. And she said, according to your words, so be it. She sent them away, they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. So, her house was marked. And then they came to the mountain, abode there 3 days until the pursuers returned. Pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but didn't find them. So they combed everywhere that they could, trying to find them. So the 2 men returned, descended from the mountain, and passed over, came to Joshua the son of Nun, told him all things that befell them. They said to Joshua, truly the Lord has delivered into our hands all the land, for even all the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. So they found out everybody is terrified of us. And so that's going to give you courage, right? Then we'll start next time with the crossing of the Jordan. Sing the song. You want to sing?
It was me, I sent Reuben and two as spies. those last two.
Taylor.
The ones that
Oh,
gave a good,
Joshua Taylor,
yeah, the ones that gave a good report
Yeah.
first.
yeah.
I got a cute story about a cat house.
Oh, wait, I don't know.
It's really cute. When I worked at James Machine Works, we were constantly having to go to the Caterpillar place to build parts for them and repair parts and all that.
Let me turn this microphone